In this web design lesson, we're going to take a detailed look at root folders, explore the role they play in web development and web design, and then we'll jump into Dreamweaver and I'll show you how to go ahead and set up your local root folder before you begin working on any web-based project. If you remember from our class discussion, the root folder is the folder on your computer or on the server in which all the files associated with a website are contained. If something is going to be included in this website, whether it be an actual page, an image, a video, an audio file, etc., it must be inside of that root folder. Otherwise, the page will not view properly in the browser. The root folder can be saved anywhere on your computer. Let's take a look into Finder for now before we even jump into Dreamweaver. I have a root folder saved into Sites. You can really put the root folder anywhere on your computer you wish, as long as all the files that you need for the page stay inside of that root folder. Put the folder wherever is convenient for you. Some people like to put them on the desktop, some people like to put them in documents. Some people like to work with current projects off of the desktop and then move them elsewhere later. Again, as long as everything remains the same inside of that folder, you're not going to run into any problems. The problem comes in when you start moving things into or out of the root folder, reorganizing the root folder, or actually changing names of files inside of that root folder. Then what will happen is your web page will actually lose the information of where those files are stored. This will begin to make a little more sense as we continue exploring this concept of root folders and as you continue moving forward in web development. It will really become crystal clear when we start taking a close look at HTML code later on in this class. Inside of my Sites folder here, I have a folder called fmroot. Now this is a root folder of a site that a few students did a couple years back for the Summers Farmers Market. If we open up this root folder, you'll see inside of here I have a couple folders and all these files that end with .html. These are all individual pages in the site. Notice what file you see here, index.html. In our class discussion, we talked about the home page, and it's never actually called home page in terms of file nomenclature. It's called index.html, and whenever the browser goes to open up this website, that browser is always going to look inside of our root folder for a file called index.html. It must be spelled exactly as you see here. If you call it index home or index2, if you've made another copy of it, it's always going to look for this one index file. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to open up this index file. And it's going to open in my browser, and here's what the page looks like. We have a series of buttons down the side of the page, a banner up top, and we have an image over here. Now, unlike many of the graphic design programs you've used so far, web pages actually don't contain the images themselves or audio files or video files, whatever we happen to be talking about or using, in the page itself. It's always referenced through the code to wherever the file is saved. So if we jump back to my root folder, for instance, let's take a look at this, this picture right here of the basket of vegetables. When I jump back into my root folder, that file is actually saved somewhere inside of this assets folder. Now, whoever created this website did a good job of organizing their files. We see very clear names as to the HTML documents, and then all of the images and peripheral objects that are used throughout the site are placed in a different folder called Assets. Now, if we look here, we see these are all JPEGs, so these are all different images. Had there been multiple forms of media, such as audio files and video files, they could have even broken this Assets folder down further and made separate subfolders for all the images, all the video files, and all the audio files. If we look here, here's that JPEG file on its own. So what happens is this web page references that image out of the assets folder inside of the root folder. I know we have a lot of folders going on, but I can't stress enough how important it is to be organized from the start with how you set up your root folder. If you decide later on once you've begun a site, for instance, you can see here there are quite a few JPEGs in here, and this is a very simple site. It only contains 4 pages. If this person started off by just dropping everything into the root folder and not specifying an assets folder, got halfway through the project and kind of said to themselves, boy, this is getting pretty tough to sort through. I better go back and organize it. Well, if they move it into a separate folder, what they would find when they open their page back up is this file would no longer be present. Let's do this as an example. I'm going to go ahead and take this file and I'm just going to move it, all right, out into the main part of the root folder. And when I open this back up, quit Safari here, try this again. There we go. It retained in the short-term storage on a computer that file was still there. But when I closed Safari and opened it back up, you see that this now has disappeared. And Safari just drops a little question mark in there. That's because it's lost where that file is stored. Now you do see here that it says veggies. This is something called alt text that we'll look at when we start designing within Dreamweaver. So I'm going to go ahead and move this file back into the assets folder where it originally was. And now when I open this index page back up, we see that it reappears. So there's a quick demonstration of the importance of keeping this folder the same throughout any web project. When you begin any web assignment or web page, doesn't always have to be an assignment for class. You may be designing on your own at home or in the future any kind of opportunities that present themselves to you. You can start a project by making a new root folder right from Finder, or you can set up a new root folder right from the program we're using called Dreamweaver. It's really kind of 6 of one, half a dozen of the other. I'll show you an example of both. So as long as I'm in Finder here, let's say I'm beginning a new web page. I'm going to go ahead and make a new folder. Again, I could make this folder anywhere I want on my computer. I happen to like to use the sites folder in the main part of my storage here. So I'll make a new folder and I'll call this, let's just call it practice. Okay? So I made a folder called practice. Now, I want you to have the foresight ahead of time to go ahead and assume that you're going to use images in your web page. Possibly audio, possibly video, but some type of peripheral elements other than just plain text on a page, because let's face it, that can be pretty boring. So I'm going to go ahead and right from the beginning create a new folder inside of what will eventually be my root folder, and I'm going to name this assets. You can name it images, you can name it whatever you'd like, as long as it follows good naming practices, which are no spaces, no punctuation. If you were to have 2 words in a file name or a folder name, such as I do here with FM root, you should put an underscore instead of a space. It's just good practice.